Greetings, fellow trekkers and trekkers. Welcome to look at Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 5. Now continues on with Rapture. In the wardroom on Deep Space Nine, Captain Sisko, Major Kira, and Commander Jadzia Dax are admiring a 20,000-year-old painting of the lost Bajoran city of Bahala. They only know proof that the city ever existed. Dax is surprised that the painting isn't a lot bigger. Both Kira and Sisko are in awe of the ancient artifact, which has been recently returned to the Bajorans by the Cardassian government. Sisko points out a Pantaka spire in the painting, explaining that the markings upon the spire describe the coordinates of Lost City. However, since two of the spire sides cannot be seen, the city's exact position is difficult to decipher. He has the picture scanned into the computer by Bajoran deputies so that he can study it, prompting Kira to recall a prophecy that only one who had been dashed by the prophets could find the ruins of Bahala. No pressure, Dax jokingly says to Sisko. In his office, Sisko looks at the computer screen of the painting and the markings on the spire. He notices that the symbols on the two hidden sides of the spire can be faintly seen in a nearby waterfall. Adjoining to a holosuite, he produces a recreation of the spire and has the computer overlay images of the markings from the painting as he begins the quest to decode the coordinates. Later, he is interrupted by Quark, who comes into the holosuite to inform him that it's after 3 a.m. After dismissing Quark's offer to visit a pleasure maze, Sisko tries to save the program to isolating a rod. As he works the console, however, there is an explosion and the captain is thrown to the floor, plasma energy crackling over his body. Shocked, Quark calls the infirmary. Odo hauls Quark into his office, under arrest for negligence. When Quark attempts to blame Chief O'Brien for not assigning Rom to fix the holosuites, Odo is having none of it, suggesting Quark tell it to the magistrate. In the infirmary, Julian Bishop concludes that the captain shows no sign of permanent neural damage, but has some odd synaptic potentials. Diagnosing Sisko with post-neural shock syndrome, he advises him that external stimuli will seem more pronounced for a while and discharges him to restricted duty for 3 days. Later in his quarters, Sisko finishes a meal of Lingta roast cooked by his son, Jake. Sisko tells Jake that his grandfather will be proud of him. When Jake mentions the imminent return of Cassidy following her 6-month jail sentence, Sisko is distracted by shapes on his plate, forming the symbols resembling the markings on the spire. Back at the holosuite, he continues tirelessly working on the puzzle, but is interrupted by a call from Admiral Charlie Watley from Starfleet headquarters. The Admiral has big news. Bajor's petition for Federation membership has been successful, and the Bajorans have requested the signing ceremony to take place aboard Deep Space Nine. Sisko is delighted, and Watley congratulates him on the successful completion of his mission, telling him to spruce up that floating bicycle wheel of yours in preparation for the ceremony. In Quarks, a busy crowd watches as several Quarks doppelgangers unveil a banner from the upper level. Realizing that the banner reads, "Welcome Klingons," Quark jumps onto the bar and unfurls a second banner bearing the seal of the Federation to appreciative applause. Chatting with Dax and Worf, Quark gleefully explains how good Bajor's entry into the Federation will be for business, and he expects the place to be busier than an Albanian beehive, with sales of root beer alone to increase 5-fold. Seated at a table, Kira explains to Worf and Dax that 5 years ago she wouldn't have been celebrating Bajor's admittance into the Federation, but now her time on the station and her work with Captain Sisko have changed her mind. Taking to congratulate Sisko, Kira enters the holosuite and finds him sitting motionless on the floor in front of the holographic Pantaka spire. When he doesn't respond to her, Kira shakes Sisko out of his trance. He explains that he had been experiencing a vision of Bahala, as if it was really there, and had for one moment understood it all. Bahala, the orbs, the occupation of Bajor, the discovery of the wormhole, and the coming war with the Dominion. Kira in awe explains that he was having a Pog Tamfar, a secret vision, and with guilt realized that she had interrupted it. Just then, O'Brien calls over the comm and announces that Kai Wynn is on her way to the station. Sisko asks Kira to greet her at the airlock while he continues to work on the puzzle of the spire. At the airlock, Kai explains to Kira that she has reservations about Bajor's entry into the Federation, but is willing to await the will of the prophets. Back in the holosuite, Sisko frets over maps and charts of Bajor in search of the location of Bahala. As he works, the doors of the suite open and Cassidy Yates enters, nervous but happy to be back. After kissing her passionately, Cisco tells her that the cores are just as she left them. He wants her to accompany him to find Bajor to find Bahala, as he's worked out what the markings on the spire mean and is ready to find the lost city. Swept away by sheer enthusiasm, she agrees. Beaming down from Runabout into a series of underground passages, Cisco needs to make their way by palm beacon to a wall of stone. Using his phaser to melt the rock, Cisco exposes the cavern behind, containing the ruins of Bahala and its Bantaka spire. Back on Deep Space Nine, Kira Odo Worf argued in the security office about accommodation arrangements for several admirals and captains due to attend the upcoming signing ceremony. Kira's distracted and explains that she thinks it is time for the prophets that Cisco's found Bahala. Interrupting, Kai Wynn appears and asks if she can talk with the Major. On the upper level of the promenade, the Kai asks Kira if she thinks Cisco will forgive her for doubting that he was truly the emissary of the prophets. She admits that she was wrong, that the only one touched by the prophets could have found Bahala, and that she's now willing to follow the path the emissaries laid out for Bajor. Kira is surprised and impressed, saying it takes a lot of courage to admit when you're wrong. Wynn is insulted, admonishing Kira and those who were in the resistance for thinking that they were the only ones with true courage, the only ones who fought the Cardassians during the occupation. Wynn reveals that she spent 5 years in a Cardassian prison during the occupation, and while the resistance had their weapons to protect them from the Cardassians, all she had was her faith and her courage. Walk with the prophets, child. I know I will, Wynn tells Kira before walking away. Standing in the ruins of Bahala, surrounded by teams carrying excavation equipment, Cisco is visited by Admiral Watley. Skeptical, Watley asks the captain how he found the city, and Cisco insists it really was a vision. Watley expresses disappointment that Cisco has been neglecting his duties on the station in the run-up to Bajor's entry into the Federation and orders him to submit to a full medical examination on the station the next morning. As the Admiral leaves, Cisco suffers a painful headache. In the infirmary, Admiral Watley awaits the arrival of Cisco, who was late for his medical examination. Hearing a commotion on the promenade, Bashir and Watley make their way to the entrance and see Cisco walking through crowds of admiring Bajorans. Cisco stops by a woman and tells her not to worry about her counterpot harvest, and then by a Bajoran militia officer and tells him to head for home. He doesn't belong on the station. Slowly crippled by another headache, Cisco is caught by Watley and Bashir. Look at the Admiral. Cisco tells him that his son forgives him. Watley is left astounded, having told no one that he and his son Kevin were having problems. He's the emissary, Bashir responds. On a bio bed in the infirmary, Cisco stars a dream he had about a swarm of locusts hovering above Bahala. The swarm flew off, he says, heading towards Cardassia. Cisco doesn't know what this means and needs time to figure it out. Bashir explains Cisco could die if the visions are allowed to continue, and he needs surgery to correct his aberrant brain activity. The procedure will save his life, but will also most likely remove the visions. Not wanting to lose the visions, Cisco refuses treatment. In Cisco's quarters, Cisco explains to Jake and Cassidy why he has refused surgery, much to their anger and surprise. Both are upset and beg him to reconsider. Just then, Kaiwan enters and asks the emissary if he is ready. He has asked her to guide him in his journey. He tells Jake and Cassidy that he loves them, and then leaves with Wynn to consult the Orb of Prophecy. In Ops, Kira attacks Worf and O'Brien to discuss the captain's deteriorating health. Worf and Kira assert to the skeptical Dax and O'Brien that faith in the prophets will guide him safely through. Cisco kneels in front of the Orb of Prophecy, plagued by several headaches. Wynn is very concerned that Cisco is too unwell to handle an orb experience, since it is a strain even on healthy people, and asks him if he would rather wait until after the signing ceremony. Cisco insists that he wants to proceed, telling her he needs help to understand what the visions are trying to tell him. As she leaves him, he opens the orb box. As Federation of Bajoran dignitaries gather in the wardroom for the signing ceremony, it's an hour since it was due to start, but no sign of Captain Cisco. Though Kaiwan knows that Cisco will want to be there for such an important moment, she agrees that Admiral Wiley can begin the proceedings without him. Just as Wiley begins to give a speech, Cisco bursts in and warns that Bajor must not join the Federation. Not yet. He claims that the locust he saw in his visions will destroy Bajor if it doesn't stand alone, before collapsing into a seizure on the floor. Back in the infirmary, Admiral Barley orders Bashir to operate, but the doctor cannot proceed without the permission of Cisco's closest relative. Over Cisco's unconscious body, Jake breaks down and tells his father that he needs him. He gives Bashir permission to operate, and Bashir begins to prepare for surgery. At the entrance to the Bajoran temple, Kaima expresses concerns to Kira, saying that she hopes the prophets will forgive them for interfering with emissaries' visions. Kira defends Jake's right to make the decision to save his father, but Wynn is disappointed that he did not trust the prophets. Kira counters that perhaps this is all part of the prophets' plan. Wynn states that the Bajoran Council of Ministers has voted to delay acceptance of Federation membership. Just as Cisco's found Bahala, her path is unclear and nothing is certain. Awake in the infirmary, Cisco reacts anguished when he realizes that the visions are gone. Bashir informs him that they had no choice but to operate. He was dying. Cisco admits that he almost understood it all. Back on his feet in his office, Cisco again ponders the computer image of the painting of Bahala. Admiral Watley arrives and asks Cisco to contact the Council of Ministers and tell them he was wrong, and to convince them to accept Federation membership. Cisco says he can't do that, because everything he said and did while he had the vision still feels right. Watley is disappointed and informs Cisco that he could remove his Starfleet commission for this. Cisco reassures the Admiral he is certain Bajor will join the Federation one day. Watley asks if he's speaking as the Starfleet captain or as the emissary of the prophets. Cisco answers both. The Admiral replies that in that case, he will keep the champagne on ice. Returning to his quarters, Cisco is ready to break Jake and Cassidy Yates, who are cooking jambalaya as a welcome back dinner, both for Cassidy and for him. Cassidy explains that while he may feel he's lost something important, he has lost something important as well. She takes his hand and puts it onto Jake's. He in turn takes her hand and adds it to his and his son's. Aw, that's sweet. So anyway, let's take a look at some continuity surrounding this episode. This episode takes place roughly 6 months after For the Cause. It's stated that the icon painting of Bahala is to be placed in the State Museum in Elvia. Later in the episode, Cisco tells a Bajoran woman on the promenade that the counterpart harvest will be much better this year. Both these Bajor-related references are first heard in the first season episode Progress, in which it was stated that large crops of counterpods were grown in Elvia. When describing his Pagtum Far to Kira, Cisco references the discovery of the wormhole and the coming war with the Dominion. While talking to Jake and Cassidy Yates, Cisco describes holding the newborn Jake in his arms. This is only one of the moments he experienced in his first encounter with the prophets and emissary. Cisco's vision of Locust heading for Cardassia predicts the revelation in the episode By Infernal's Light later in Season 5 that Cardassia has joined the Dominion. Because Cisco prevented them from joining the Federation, the Bajorans were free to sign a non-aggression pact with the Dominion and call to arms, keeping them out of the fighting when war broke out. Another part of the Bahala excavation site was visited by Cisco in the 6th season episode The Reckoning. Cisco again suffered odd synaptic potentials at the same time as a vision in the 6th season episode Far Beyond the Stars. He previously suffered an excess of neuropeptides at the same time as an orb shadow in the 4th season episode Accession. Given the change of uniform in this episode and the appearance of Bashir wearing an old-style jumpsuit in the Dominion Terminal cabin in Purgatory Shadow, it is surmised that this is around the same time, or perhaps just after, he was replaced by a changeling. If the replacement occurred prior to this episode, then it was a changeling that performed the complex brain surgery that saved Cisco's life. Of course, it was also mean that a changeling, a race described by Dominion loyalists as gods themselves, both advocated removing and then ultimately did remove Cisco's capacity to receive visions from Bajor's chosen gods. Cassidy Yates returns to the station following the end of the 6-month jail term she was given in For the Cause for aiding the Maquis, and is warmly welcomed back by Cisco. However, it would seem that more than 6 months had passed since the aforementioned episode, as Liam Garrick was also sentenced to 6 months in prison in Broken Link, and have been released by the time of things past. So overall, I really do like this episode, and yeah, let's just say that, well, and yeah, I also really like the new uniforms that get introduced, and just, yeah, it's a really good episode overall, so yeah. So overall, I give Rapture 4 warp cores out of 5. Anyway, tune in as we take a look as we take a look next episode, The Darkness and the Light. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.